Pause for a moment, because there is something unusual about the path that led you here today. Out of all the messages you could have encountered, out of all the distractions that could have pulled your attention elsewhere, you arrived at this exact moment. That is why I ask you not to rush ahead. Don't skip, because something important is waiting for you, and it has been waiting far longer than you realize. There is a story unfolding behind the scenes of your life, and for a long time, only fragments of it have been visible. You noticed strange feelings that arrived without explanation. You felt moments of hope followed by moments of uncertainty. You wondered why certain memories continued returning to your mind even when you tried to focus on other things. What you did not see was that those invisible threads were connecting events together in ways that would only make sense later. And today, one of those hidden pieces begins to move. Somewhere, someone connected to your soulmate has been holding onto a chapter they believed would never fully close. Not because they were cruel. Not because they wished harm. But because letting go of something meaningful is rarely as simple as people pretend it is. Sometimes people smile while carrying unfinished emotions. Sometimes they move forward while secretly looking backward. Sometimes they convince themselves they have forgotten when in truth they have only learned how to hide what remains. That is where this story begins. Not with your soulmate. Not even with you. But with someone who thought they understood how everything would end. What makes this remarkable is that they never expected your presence to become part of the picture. They believed the future had already been written. They believed certain doors would always stay open. They believed certain connections could never truly disappear. Then something changed. Very quietly. So quietly that almost nobody noticed. At first it was only a small shift. A different tone in a conversation. A different expression when your name appeared. A different silence where confidence once lived. Tiny details that seemed insignificant on their own. Yet together they formed something impossible to ignore. The realization that your soulmate was changing. Stay till the end. Because this is where the story becomes more personal than you expect. Your soulmate began seeing life differently. Not overnight. Not through some dramatic event. The transformation happened in small moments that accumulated over time. Moments that taught them new lessons about loyalty, trust, appreciation, and the kind of connection that feels genuine rather than convenient. And every time they learned one of those lessons, a comparison quietly formed inside them. Not intentionally. Not consciously. But naturally. The more they understood what truly mattered, the more they began recognizing what had been missing before. That realization was not easy for everyone involved. Especially for the person who once believed they would always occupy a permanent place in your soulmate's heart. You see, people often expect change to happen loudly. They expect arguments. Announcements. Dramatic endings. But the most powerful changes usually happen in silence. One day a person wakes up and realizes they no longer feel the same. One day they notice their attention moving elsewhere. One day they understand that the future they imagined is no longer the future they desire. And when that realization arrives, everything begins shifting beneath the surface. This is why certain emotions have recently become impossible for someone to ignore. Because they are beginning to recognize something they never expected. Your influence. Not through force. Not through effort. Not through competition. Simply through authenticity. There is something about being genuinely yourself that creates an impact far stronger than performance ever could. And whether you realize it or not, that impact has reached places you cannot see. The strange part is that your soulmate may not even fully understand the extent of it yet. They only know that something feels different. Something feels more peaceful. More real. More aligned with the future they secretly hope to build. And every time that feeling grows stronger, someone else notices it too. That awareness creates questions. Questions they never thought they would have to ask. Questions about timing. Questions about choices. Questions about what comes next. Yet beneath all those questions lies one truth that continues becoming harder to avoid. Life moves forward. No matter how tightly people hold on to yesterday. No matter how much they wish certain chapters could stay unfinished. No matter how often they revisit old memories. Life continues calling everyone toward what belongs ahead. And right now, that call is growing louder. Can you feel it? That subtle sensation that something is preparing itself? That feeling that a conversation has not happened yet but somehow already exists in the distance? That awareness that pieces are moving even when everything appears still? Those feelings are not arriving without reason. They are arriving because the story is entering a new phase. A phase where hidden emotions become harder to hide. A phase where clarity begins replacing confusion. A phase where people are forced to confront what their hearts have been trying to tell them. But before that happens, there is one detail you still do not know. One detail that changes everything. Because the person who thought they understood your soulmate better than anyone recently witnessed something unexpected. Something so simple that most people would have overlooked it. Yet once they saw it, they could not stop thinking about it. And from that moment forward, a question began echoing in their mind. A question connected to you. A question connected to the future. A question connected to a realization they never imagined they would face. And that realization is only beginning to unfold. The moment they finally understand what it truly means, everything changes. And that moment is closer than anyone realizes. There is a detail that has remained hidden until now, and the reason it stayed hidden is because nobody was looking in the right direction. People often search for answers in grand gestures, dramatic conversations, and obvious signs. Yet the truth usually reveals itself through the smallest moments. The moments that pass by unnoticed. The moments that seem ordinary until someone looks back and realizes they were witnessing a turning point. That is exactly what happened. The person who once felt certain about their place in your soulmate's story began noticing things they could not explain away. At first, they dismissed them. They told themselves it meant nothing. They convinced themselves they were imagining it. But the signs kept appearing. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just consistently enough to become impossible to ignore. And the strangest part? None of it involved words. Your soulmate was not making speeches. They were not announcing life-changing decisions. They were simply becoming more themselves. More honest. More comfortable. More aligned with what truly mattered to them. That quiet transformation revealed something powerful. Because when people stop pretending, their hearts become easier to understand. Don't skip. What comes next explains why certain emotions are suddenly rising to the surface. There was a conversation recently. Not a conversation about you directly. Not even a conversation about relationships. It began as something completely unrelated. Casual. Ordinary. The kind of exchange people forget 5 minutes later. Yet in the middle of it, something unexpected happened. Your soulmate smiled. A genuine smile. Not the polite kind people wear for appearances. Not the automatic kind people give without thinking. A real smile that appeared before they could stop it. And someone noticed. They noticed because it hadn't appeared that way in a very long time. The room kept moving. The conversation continued. Nobody stopped to analyze it. Nobody pointed it out. Yet one person quietly carried that image with them afterward. Because they remembered a time when that smile belonged somewhere else. And for the first time, they wondered whether the story had changed without them realizing it. Questions began growing. Small questions at first. Then larger ones. Questions that followed them into quiet moments. Questions that returned during ordinary days. Questions that became impossible to silence. What happened? When did things change? Why does the future suddenly feel different? The answers did not arrive immediately. But neither did the feeling disappear. In fact, it grew stronger. Every observation seemed to lead toward the same conclusion. Your soulmate was moving forward. Not running. Not forcing. Simply moving. Like someone following a path they finally trust. And when people start trusting their path, something remarkable happens. Their energy changes. Their priorities change. Even the way they speak begins changing. What once mattered deeply becomes less important. What once seemed impossible suddenly feels natural. What once held their attention starts fading into the background. Stay till the end. Because something important is waiting for you. There is another layer to this story that almost nobody understands. The person watching all of this expected resistance. They expected hesitation. They expected confusion. Instead, they witnessed peace. And peace can be far more revealing than conflict. Conflict creates noise. Peace creates certainty. That certainty is what unsettled them. Because certainty cannot easily be argued with. It cannot be negotiated. It cannot be persuaded to disappear. Once someone begins feeling certain about where their heart is leading them, everything starts reorganizing itself around that truth. That is what they are witnessing now. And deep down, they know it. Even if they haven't fully admitted it. Even if they continue searching for alternate explanations. Even if part of them still hopes they misunderstood what they saw. The evidence continues building. Moment after moment. Observation after observation. Until eventually one realization becomes unavoidable. Your soulmate is no longer looking backward the way they once did. They are looking ahead. Toward possibilities. Toward growth. Toward something they believe could be meaningful. And every step in that direction creates another shift behind the scenes. What makes this fascinating is that your soulmate may not realize how visible these changes have become. They are simply living. Simply evolving. simply becoming more connected to what feels authentic. Yet authenticity has a way of revealing itself to everyone around us. People notice. Even when they pretend not to. Even when they wish they didn't. Even when they hope things remain the same. The truth eventually shines through. And lately, that truth has become impossible to ignore. But there is one final piece you have not heard. One moment that changed everything. A moment so unexpected that it left someone completely speechless. It happened during an ordinary day. Nothing dramatic. Nothing cinematic. Just a single question asked at exactly the wrong, or perhaps exactly the right, time. A question that caused your soulmate to pause. A question that revealed more than any prepared answer ever could. The response lasted only a few seconds. Yet those few seconds carried a meaning nobody in the room expected. And when the person listening realized what they had just witnessed, their entire understanding of the situation shifted. Because for the first time, they saw where your soulmate's heart was truly pointing. They saw it clearly. They saw it honestly. And once they saw it, they could never unsee it. What they discovered in that moment is something we must talk about next. Because the answer your soulmate gave was not what anyone expected. And the silence that followed said even more than the words themselves. A single pause can reveal more than an entire conversation, and that is exactly what happened next. The question itself was simple. So simple that nobody expected it to matter. It drifted into the room like any other passing remark. There was no dramatic build-up. No special attention placed upon it. Yet the moment it was spoken, something shifted. Your soulmate became quiet. Not uncomfortable. Not nervous. Just thoughtful. The kind of thoughtful silence that appears when a person accidentally touches a truth they were not planning to reveal. For a brief moment, everything slowed. The conversation around them continued, but their attention moved somewhere else. Somewhere deeper. Somewhere beyond the ordinary words being exchanged. And that was when the person watching realized something important. The answer was not hidden in what your soulmate said. It was hidden in what they felt before they spoke. Don't skip. Because this part explains why the story is becoming impossible to ignore. There are moments in life when the heart responds before the mind has time to organize a response. Those moments are rare because most people spend their lives filtering what they truly feel. They edit. They calculate. They protect themselves. But every now and then, authenticity arrives first. And when it does, it leaves traces behind. That is what happened. Before your soulmate answered, something crossed their face. A softness. A warmth. A quiet recognition. It lasted only a second. Yet someone noticed. And once they noticed it, they could not stop thinking about it afterward. Because that expression was familiar. Not familiar because they had seen it recently. Familiar because they remembered seeing it long ago. Back when hope felt effortless. Back when possibilities felt exciting. Back when the future felt like an invitation rather than a responsibility. The realization landed slowly. Then all at once. Your soulmate had begun feeling that way again. Not because of the past. but because of what might still be ahead. And suddenly everything started making sense. The changes. The smiles. The unexpected moments of peace. The growing certainty. All of it pointed toward the same truth. A new chapter was quietly taking shape. Stay till the end. Something important is waiting for you. What makes this story remarkable is that nobody can force this kind of transformation. It cannot be manufactured. It cannot be rehearsed. Real change happens when someone finally stops carrying what no longer belongs in their future. And whether your soulmate realized it or not, that process had already begun. One memory at a time. One realization at a time. One decision at a time. They were creating space. Space for clarity. Space for possibility. Space for something that felt genuine. The person observing all of this wanted to deny it. Part of them hoped they were reading too much into things. Part of them searched for alternative explanations. But every answer led back to the same conclusion. The story they believed was unfinished had quietly reached its ending. And another story was beginning. That realization was difficult. Not because anyone had done something wrong. Not because there was anger. Not because there was conflict. Simply because accepting change is never easy when you expected things to remain the same. Yet life rarely follows old expectations. It continues moving. It continues unfolding. And it continues surprising people when they least expect it. That is exactly what is happening now. Because while someone else was busy trying to understand what had changed, your soulmate was focused on something entirely different. The future. Not in a dramatic way. Not in an obsessive way. But in a hopeful way. The kind of hope that appears when a person begins believing that meaningful things are still possible. That hope changed everything. It influenced their choices. It influenced their energy. It influenced the way they viewed the days ahead. And perhaps most importantly, it influenced who occupied their thoughts during quiet moments. Those quiet moments matter more than people realize. Because when distractions disappear, truth becomes easier to hear. And lately, your soulmate has been hearing truths they once struggled to understand. Truths about connection. Truths about appreciation. Truths about the people who bring peace rather than confusion. The people who feel like sunlight after a long season of clouds. The people whose presence does not need to compete for attention because it naturally stays in the heart. Those truths have been growing stronger. Day by day. Moment by moment. Until they can no longer be ignored. And that is why something unexpected is beginning to happen behind the scenes. Someone who once felt certain now feels uncertain. Someone who once felt secure now has questions. Someone who once believed they understood everything is realizing there were pieces of the story they never saw. Pieces connected to growth. Pieces connected to timing. Pieces connected to a future that is unfolding in ways nobody predicted. Yet the most surprising part has not happened yet. Because very soon, another conversation is going to take place. A conversation that begins innocently enough. A conversation that seems ordinary on the surface. But hidden inside it is a realization so powerful that it will confirm everything that has been slowly unfolding until now. And when that realization finally arrives, one person will understand exactly why your soulmate could no longer stay attached to what belonged in the past. Because they will finally see what has been calling your soulmate forward all along. And once that truth comes into the light, nothing will look the same again. The next piece of this story arrived so quietly that almost everyone missed it. There was no announcement. No dramatic scene. No obvious sign that something significant was happening. Yet beneath the surface, a realization was taking shape, and once it began, it could not be stopped. The conversation everyone thought was ordinary turned out to be anything but ordinary. It started with laughter. Simple laughter. The kind people barely remember afterward. But sometimes the most revealing moments are hidden inside the moments nobody expects to matter. As the conversation unfolded, someone asked your soulmate about the future. Not a serious question. Not a life-changing question. Just a casual thought tossed into the air. Yet the answer that followed carried a different energy. For a brief second, your soulmate's eyes lit up. Not because they had all the answers. Not because everything was already figured out. But because they suddenly saw possibilities. And that changed everything. Don't skip. Because what happened next explains why certain people are beginning to understand what they never wanted to admit. You see, there is a difference between remembering the past and wanting to return to it. Many people confuse the two. Memories can remain meaningful without becoming destinations. They can remain valuable without becoming futures. And lately, your soulmate has been discovering that difference for themselves. The more they move forward, the clearer it becomes. Certain chapters taught important lessons. Certain experiences shaped who they became. Certain people played meaningful roles. But not every chapter is meant to be lived forever. Not every season is meant to stay. Not every story is meant to continue exactly where it left off. That understanding has been growing quietly inside them. And now it is becoming visible. The person watching all of this finally started seeing the pattern. Not one event. Not one conversation. Not one isolated moment. A pattern. A collection of small truths pointing toward the same destination. The destination was not confusion. It was clarity. And clarity is powerful. Because once someone becomes clear about what they want, their energy changes in ways that cannot be hidden. Stay till the end. Something important is waiting for you. There have been moments recently when your soulmate found themselves smiling without a reason they could explain. Moments when they felt hopeful even on ordinary days. Moments when the future felt brighter than it did before. At first, they barely noticed. Then the moments became more frequent. Then they became impossible to ignore. What they were experiencing was not excitement based on fantasy. It was something much deeper. A quiet confidence. The kind that appears when someone's heart begins trusting the direction life is taking them. That confidence became visible to everyone around them. Even to the people who wished it hadn't. Especially to the people who wished it hadn't. Because confidence has a way of revealing truths long before words do. It reveals what someone values. It reveals where their attention is moving. It reveals which possibilities they secretly believe in. And lately, your soulmate has been revealing more than they realize. Not through declarations. Not through promises. Simply through the way they carry themselves. The way they talk about tomorrow. The way they respond when certain subjects arise. The way their energy shifts when they think about what lies ahead. Every piece tells part of the story. And together, those pieces create a picture that is becoming clearer every day. A picture that someone else can finally see. For a long time, they resisted it. For a long time, they searched for reasons to doubt it. For a long time, they convinced themselves they were misunderstanding what was happening. But reality has a way of returning no matter how often people look away. And reality is returning now. One observation at a time. One realization at a time. One truth at a time. What makes this moment remarkable is that nobody planned it. Nobody forced it. Nobody orchestrated it. Life simply continued moving. People continued growing. Hearts continued learning. And eventually the truth emerged naturally. The truth that your soulmate is becoming someone new. Not a different person. A fuller version of themselves. A version that understands what matters. A version that recognizes genuine connection. A version that no longer wants to settle for anything less than what feels real. That realization is creating waves far beyond what anyone expected. Because every time someone chooses authenticity, the entire story changes. The future changes. The possibilities change. The relationships around them change. And that is exactly what is happening now. Yet there is still one piece missing. One final realization that has not fully arrived. A realization connected to a moment that is approaching faster than anyone realizes. A moment when someone will stop looking at what has already happened and start looking honestly at what is happening now. When that moment arrives, the questions that have been lingering in the background will finally receive their answers. The uncertainty will begin fading. The confusion will begin clearing. And the truth that has been quietly growing all this time will become impossible to overlook. Because very soon, someone is going to witness a moment between your soulmate and the future they truly want. A moment so genuine, so natural, and so revealing that it will answer every question that has been hanging in the air. And when that moment finally arrives, even the people who resisted the truth the longest will understand something they never expected to understand. They were never watching an old story continue. They were watching a completely new story begin. A surprising thing happens when a new story begins. Most people expect to hear a loud announcement. They expect a dramatic turning point that makes everything obvious at once. But real beginnings rarely arrive that way. They arrive quietly. They settle into everyday moments. They reveal themselves through small choices, gentle shifts, and unexpected feelings that grow stronger with time. That is exactly where this journey is now. The moment that has been approaching is closer than ever. Not because someone planned it. Not because anyone forced it. But because truth has a natural way of finding its place. And once truth begins finding its place, everything around it starts rearranging itself. Don't skip. Because this may be the most important part of the story so far. There was a time when certain people believed they understood your soulmate completely. They believed they knew how every chapter would unfold. They believed they could predict every decision, every feeling, every future possibility. Yet life has a way of humbling those assumptions. Because people grow. People heal. People discover things about themselves that even they did not know before. And growth changes everything. Recently, your soulmate has been discovering pieces of themselves that had remained hidden for a long time. Not hidden because they were lost. Hidden because the timing was not right. Some lessons can only be understood after experience. Some realizations can only arrive after patience. And some connections only become clear after enough distance has passed to see them properly. That clarity is arriving now. Little by little. Day by day. Moment by moment. What makes it remarkable is how natural it feels. There is no struggle attached to it. No confusion attached to it. Only a growing sense that certain things finally make sense. Stay till the end. Something important is waiting for you. The person who once believed they would always hold the same place in your soulmate's heart is beginning to notice something they cannot explain away anymore. Peace. Not excitement that fades quickly. Not emotions that change with circumstances. Peace. The kind of peace that appears when someone feels aligned with where they are going. And that peace has become impossible to ignore. It shows up in unexpected moments. It appears in conversations. It appears in decisions. It appears in the way your soulmate talks about tomorrow. Every sign points toward the same truth. They are no longer searching for what they lost. They are appreciating what they are finding. That realization has created a ripple effect. Because when one person stops looking backward, everyone around them notices. Even if they never say a word. Even if they never explain what changed. The shift becomes visible. And lately, that shift has become clearer than ever. There have been moments when your soulmate found themselves imagining possibilities they never allowed themselves to imagine before. Not fantasy. Not wishful thinking. Real possibilities. The kind that feel grounded. The kind that feel meaningful. The kind that feel worth believing in. Those moments have become more frequent. More natural. More powerful. And with every passing day, they are becoming harder to ignore. What nobody expected was how quickly this realization would spread. Because once one person notices change, others begin noticing it too. The conversations become different. The observations become different. The understanding becomes different. Suddenly people start connecting dots that once seemed unrelated. Suddenly they begin seeing a picture that was hidden in plain sight all along. And the picture tells a very different story from the one they expected. A story about moving forward. A story about growth. A story about a future that is quietly taking shape. The most fascinating part is that your soulmate is not trying to prove anything to anyone. They are not trying to convince anyone. They are simply following what feels genuine. And authenticity has a way of speaking for itself. It speaks through consistency. It speaks through actions. It speaks through the quiet confidence that appears when someone finally trusts their own heart. That confidence is growing stronger. And with it comes something even more powerful. Certainty. Not certainty about every detail. Not certainty about every outcome. but certainty about the direction. The feeling that they are moving toward something meaningful rather than away from something old. That distinction changes everything. Because a person moving toward hope carries a completely different energy than a person trying to escape the past. And right now, your soulmate is carrying that energy. The energy of possibility. The energy of belief. The energy of someone who is beginning to see the future through new eyes. Yet the story is not finished. In fact, one of the most revealing moments has not happened yet. Because very soon, someone who has been watching from a distance will finally stop questioning what they are seeing. They will stop searching for alternate explanations. They will stop hoping that things might somehow return to the way they once were. Instead, they will accept what has been unfolding all along. And when that acceptance arrives, something unexpected will happen. A burden they have been carrying will begin to lift. The resistance will fade. The questions will quiet. And for the first time, they will understand why this journey unfolded exactly the way it did. Not as a story about loss. Not as a story about endings. But as a story about discovering where the heart truly belongs. And when that realization fully arrives, another hidden truth will finally come into the light. A truth connected to your soulmate's next step. A truth that has been growing quietly beneath the surface. A truth that will make everything that happened before feel like preparation for what comes next. And that next chapter is closer than anyone realizes.